What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if it's your first time here. Lies, lies, and more lies. That's all we get from the federal government and the mainstream media is lies. If it comes out of a politician's mouth, if it comes from the mainstream media, you need to look at it as being a lie. Give it no leeway whatsoever. Automatically assume that it's complete falsehood, a complete lie, because it probably is. And the only way you should believe anything coming from the mainstream media or any politician is that you go prove it yourself beyond the shadow of a doubt. Because we're lied to so much that it is astonishing at the lies that comes out of the federal government, all the bureaus, all the bureaucracy, the mainstream media that spoon feeds us these lies that they want us told. And it's all to manipulate, to control, to coerce, and to get people to believe and take actions that they want you to take. And a lot of people will be taking these actions based on this information, thinking that they're making their own choices when they're really not. They're being manipulated and brainwashed into doing certain things. And most of the time, or really all the time as far as I'm concerned, it's not for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the government, of the federal government. So, once again, if it comes from the mainstream media, if it comes from any representative of the federal government or even state or local government, you need to look at it as a complete lie, complete falsehood that's being told to manipulate you into believing certain things so you will take certain actions. Do your own research, deep research, and prove these things or disprove these things that they say on your own, because they cannot be trusted. I mean, you look at their track record, you look at how much the government has lied in the past, and they've been doing it for decades, and they're still doing it, and it's getting worse and worse all the time. You look at the mainstream media's track record, lies, lies, and more lies. It's extremely dangerous because so many people look at these entities, the federal government and the mainstream media, for information, for guidance, so they can make their own decisions, they think, based on truthful information. However, that's not the way that it actually is. You have to do your deep research to try to figure out and use common sense what is reality and what is propaganda, what is manipulation, what is outright lies and brainwashing. But this article here from Natural News is a great example of that. They tell us that the economy is great. They tell us that the border is safe and secure. We know it's not. Lies, lies, after more lies. I was at my mom's this morning, and we turned on the local news to watch the weather forecast. And, you have the other news before that. And they were talking about the United States sending Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. And the way they made it sound, that the poor Ukrainians wasn't doing anything at all. They wasn't attacking any Russians. They wasn't doing anything. They was just being attacked constantly by those evil Russians. They didn't tell you that it was a back and forth war, that there's been lots of death and destruction on both sides. It was all one-sided. Poor Ukraine being attacked by big evil Russia. And, I'm not taking up for Russia. I'm not taking up for Ukraine. They're all pretty much corrupt type governments. Any government is, in my opinion, completely corrupt. But they should report the actual news instead of trying to report, everything one way. But like I said, it's to get you to believe one way, to support one thing. But this article here on Natural News, government says inflation is under control after produce prices jumped 38% in November and 80% year over year. Let's read that again. Government says inflation is under control. It's under control, guys. We can take it to the bank. The government said it. After produce prices jumped 38% in November and 80% year over year. Everything is just fine on the inflation front, we're now being told, even as the price of vegetables and other produce has increased by another 38% according to the latest government data. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that in the month of November alone, prices on fresh farm goods increased by 38.1% compared to October. Over the past 12 months, vegetables are up a whopping 80.6%, just about doubled in price over the past 12 months. The situation is even worse for eggs, which are up an astonishing 244% compared to 12 months ago. The cause, we are told, is bird flu. It's bird flu or something else, guys. Are you starting to see that their go-to excuse is always some mystery disease floating around the air? Avian flu, the story goes, is responsible for the deaths of millions of chickens and turkeys across the United States. So, according to what they're telling us, millions upon millions of chickens and turkeys are falling dead because of avian flu. They don't tell you they're being euthanized because there's a positive test in the flock, and you have to euthanize 100,000, 200,000 birds at these large poultry farms. And many more millions, we are told, will probably die in the coming months. How convenient. As for fresh produce, drought conditions in the western half of the country are supposedly responsible for those price increases. The results of one recent survey suggest that 74% of farmers in 15 western states saw a reduction in harvest in 2022. No matter how many nominal interest rate hikes are imposed by the Federal Reserve, food prices appear to be pointed straight towards the moon. And you can expect all sorts of new excuses to emerge to explain away the financial corruption that is really the cause behind all of this carnage. We are told that domestic supplies of staple crops like corn, soybeans, and wheat are expected to remain snug in 2023. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is forecasting that corn supplies will drop to a decade low before 2023 harvest, while soybean stocks will hit a 7-year low. As for wheat stocks, those are forecast to hit the lowest levels in 15 years, which Michael from the Economic Collapse blog finds to be especially concerning. Australia, the world's second largest wheat exporter, experienced flooding in recent weeks that reportedly caused extensive damage to that nation's crops. Drought conditions in Argentina, another wheat growing powerhouse, are expected to reduce that country's yields by nearly 40%. All of this coupled with the lack of rainfall in the Great Plains here in America, where winter crop ratings are now at their lowest level since 2012, could make wheat a whole lot less plentiful for at least the first half of 2023. The third world is, of course, expecting to bear the brunt of this as poor countries heavily rely on food imports. Inflation and lack of supply are already driving food import costs up to a near record high of $2 trillion in 2022, leaving the poorest countries with not enough due to food being unaffordable. Already in Somalia, more than 200,000 people have died from hunger. Next year, another 700,000 are expected to die as conditions worsen. It's all about global depopulation. But most Americans don't even know that this is happening because they don't see images of people suffering and dying on the nightly news, Michael writes from Michael Snyder. If the mainstream media is not making a big deal out of this crisis, it must not be important. Like I said, they spoon feed you the information they want to spoon feed you. As the Fed raises interest rates, it is also raising our borrowing cost. So the Fed can only go so far, because if they push rates too high, it will literally collapse the finances of the federal government. What this means is that the Fed is almost out of ammunition in their war against inflation. And our politicians in Washington are ensuring that more inflation is on the way by borrowing and spending money at a pace that we have never seen before. It is starting to get interesting, guys. Like I've been saying here for years now, stock up on food. If you'd have been stocking up on food, and some of you have, but the ones who haven't, if you've been stocking up on food when I told you to years ago, you'd be well on your way right now to having a good food storage stockpile. You would be not having to worry about starving to death because you can afford to buy food, because you'd already done that and had that put back. You'd also be producing your own food via gardening and things like that. But a lot of people don't listen, and unfortunately they're going to suffer the consequences. If you liked the video and found it useful, get a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and the Creekmore Matter, and I'll see you all in the next video, hopefully.